The original Defiance released back in 2013 and was one of the first MMOs to come to consoles. Defiance 2050 is an updated version of the original game with a slight visual overhaul and rebuilt from the ground up to provide a solid free-to-play experience. I actually never played the original game, so all my thoughts on Defiance 2050 are based on the game as a completely new player. With that said, I did play the game with a seasoned Defiance player and regularly welcomed their feedback on the game as a returning player. As a new player to the Defiance universe, I enjoyed my time with the Defiance 2050 closed beta. One thing that instantly stood out was how welcoming the game is. There are no complex systems to get your head around and no ridiculous amounts of currencies to become accustomed to. The lack of these complex systems was something I welcomed from the game because it meant as soon as the opening cutscene had played, I was thrown into the sci-fi action, which on the whole part is pretty fun. Everything you'd expect from an MMO is here: mainline story quests, side quests and randomly spawning events, all of which help you rack up the all-important XP. When I first started my time in the beta, I was impressed with how alive the world around me felt. Running through the dystopian landscapes and seeing other players engaging in random firefights with both mutants and aliens all help you feel like the bigger part of a resistance. And although the opening missions all lean into the classic go to point A, kill the enemies, go to point B, kill the enemies, they don't actually feel too repetitive. That is at first at least. Unfortunately, this is one area where Defiance really starts to show its age. Throughout my 8 hours of the closed beta, the missions, both side and story, started to lack a sense of originality. My first 5 hours were spent playing through the game with a friend, which helped take the boring edge off the repetitive missions. But when I jumped into the beta as a solo player, I couldn't help but find myself getting a little bored. I should also note that all missions here are exactly the same as the 2013 release of Defiance. The player I was playing through the beta with was a little disappointed to not see even the slightest of changes, especially as all character progressions from the original game don't carry over to Defiance 2050. Although there is no denying Defiance 2050's missions haven't aged well by design, they have aged well with their pacing. I managed to reach level 15 during the beta, and much to my surprise, I didn't really need to grind much. Now, if you simply fly through the main storyline missions, then no doubt you'll hit a wall in terms of mission level entry. But by completing the plethora of random events and side missions along the way, you should find your progression pretty seamless. One area Defiance 2050 feels great is with some of its enemy designs. You won't notice this when starting out, as the first couple of hours will just see you coming up against standard mutants that show very little difference to human enemies and rather annoying crab-like creatures. But once you start diving deeper into the game, you'll start meeting some pretty titanous enemies, especially in the larger public events. There is one huge exception here. The closed beta offered a dungeon-like instance for players that hit level 10 to enter. In so many MMOs, these dungeon experiences often offer some of the best gameplay loops. Although the instance itself was perfectly fine, the final boss felt like they were designed during the original PlayStation era, the true definition of a bullet sponge. Literally, they didn't offer a single gameplay mechanic or challenge of any kind. Simply unloading your ammo into them for about 10 minutes will see you rewarded with some pretty decent loot. Although the rewards are good, the instance experience as a whole was generally one of the most disappointing I've ever played. So I guess now is a good time to actually talk about Defiance 2050's loot, as well that's pretty much what every MMO evolves around. Although the loot all carries a very genetic sci-fi visual style, the weapons do offer a variety of different gameplay experiences. For the first few hours I was continuously switching between weapons to find one that suited me, and once I found an LMG I was pretty happy. The mid-range damage and larger clip size were perfect for how I pretty much play any third-person action game. On the other hand, my teammate couldn't stand the LMG and had a lot more fun with a shotgun. Other than picking up new weapons, you also find salvage that's left behind by defeated enemies. This salvage is used to level up your weapons, which I'm pleased to say brings a genuine increase to the weapon's damage. One thing that is completely new to the Defiance universe in Defiance 2050 beta was the Assault class. None of the other classes were available for this beta, so as a new player I cannot comment on them at all. With that said, the guy I was playing with did mention that he thought the Assault class was probably the weakest available in the game. In all honesty, I can see his point. For starters, the main ability of the Assault class is a sprint, which personally I don't think is a great ability. It should be an ability that all classes offer as a standard, and really didn't offer much of a game-changing mechanic. When playing Defiance 2050 with a friend, I genuinely had a good time and look forward to sinking more time into the game when the next beta comes around. But that is as a newcomer to the Defiance universe. Although my teammate did enjoy an element of us playing the game together, they didn't feel compelled to come back and really get invested in the game they'd already sunk 25 hours into. The free-to-play approach for Defiance 2050 definitely looks to be the best approach to bring a whole new audience to the Defiance universe. With a summer 2018 console release around the corner, I have no doubt in saying that groups of friends will enjoy the game, but a solo player will probably have a pretty sluggish time making their way through some tired gameplay mechanics and missions. To keep up to date with more indie game content and the latest indie game reviews, make sure you subscribe and head on over to indie-credible.com.
I will let the world know of your righteousness.